Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Georgia-Alabama Sports Live, and it is going to be a fantastic show. Excited about it. It's been a great weekend. We had not one, but two different media days. Muskogee County School District had their media days, and of course, Brookstone. But I'm Thrift Barringer. This, of course, is my partner in crime, Richard Holdridge. And we want to thank you for joining us here on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live, your premier destination for all things high school sports, professional, college around Georgia and Alabama, specifically the Tri-City area, which is Columbus, Georgia, Muskogee County, over into Phoenix City. And we're going to try to get up to Harris County, LaGrange, and around Lynette, 45-minute radius. It was something that we would try to accomplish and try to go and live stream their games. But today's show is to recap all things that happened with media days this past weekend, preview the upcoming season with all the teams that had media days these last Saturday and Friday, and also touch on some of the other schools around the area. They haven't had a media day, or we weren't present for their media day, but we will talk about them. But Richard, first things first, how are you, man, and how excited are you that football season's finally upon us?
Well, thank you, Thrift, for just having this show. It is our first show, and I'm excited. We had a really busy weekend, and I know that we got high school football, regular season games coming up in a couple of weeks, and we had a lot of sporting events that happened in and around the Chattahoochee Valley. And so with our first show kicking off, I'm excited to be here. I know I had a great weekend because I was right there with you for media days for Muskogee County on Friday, and then media days for Brookstone on Saturday. And I've got to say, Thrift, it was quite a success.
Yeah, it was an extremely successful. And I want to first start by saying thank you to Jeff Battles, Debbie Skipworth. They are the two people that were instrumental in having a Muskogee County Media Day. Jeff is the citywide athletic director. He's had a long tenure as a coach at Pacelli and, of course, Hardaway. He was a great football and athletic director there. And then he got the job, the head man, in charge of all things athletics in Muskogee County for the public schools around this area. He came up with this idea last year. He basically said that someone told him that Columbus needed to do this, that other schools in the state were having an opportunity to talk about their upcoming season, and why doesn't Columbus do that? So he started it last year. I wasn't there for that. I know you weren't either. This was both of our first experience for media days here in Muskogee County, and we're going to talk about our personal experience in just a moment. But Jeff, along with his assistant, Debbie Skipworth, who put this absolutely fantastic packet together. It's got so much information on it. It's got all 8 schools in here with a bunch of nice nuggets. And Richard, as we're going to break today, is one of our segments on the shows called Random Facts with Richard. There's a lot of random facts in here that Richard will be using throughout our broadcast. And also that gave us the contact information for all the ADs and the coaches heading into this year. And DJ Jones, who is my partner in crime for SportsVisions, which this live is presented by Alliance Specialty Contractors and SportsVisions. He asked a question to Jeff saying this should be the prerequisite for every coach, for every sport. If you want it broadcasted, if you want it talked about, covered on a radio show, newspaper clipping, podcast, whatever it may be, information like this is necessary for us to be able to promote the schools and give them the proper exposure that they deserve.
I could not agree more, because we're not able to do our broadcast the way we want it to, with all the facts for the broadcast, without the information that is vital to our success. And it helps the teams, the schools, and the athletes get more coverage and more exposure, and it allows us to be able to broadcast those games.
Exactly right. And we're going to talk about some upcoming games this year and potential games we plan on live streaming. We got a schedule of 20. 20 games. And yes, there is only 12 weeks, but we are going to do 20 games because thankfully Muskogee County does have games on Thursdays that allow us to be at other locations on Fridays. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it, Richard. And the first thing that we have on our outline is talking about our personal experience this past weekend. I didn't go last year. DJ Jones did, and we talked about it a lot on the SportsVisions radio show that you can listen every Monday and Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Smooth R&B 92.1 and, of course, the SportsVisions Facebook page. And we talked about how it was a great experience for him last year. They got this same packet. This is not the first year they gave this packet. They did it last year. But I wasn't able to be present. I was this time. And I knew that having the ability to go live with it and having people, fans, supporters who couldn't make it to media days or wasn't able to be, watch it on the news maybe later on that night. Shout out to our partners at WTVM, Tony Reese and Jonathan Hoppy, Jack Patterson, Tyler Redmond of WRBL. But people wanted to be able to get that instant information quickly. And we gave them that, and we appreciate Jeff allowing us to go live. And we did a little preview show at the beginning of it, which was pretty cool. It's like we were at SEC Media Days. You got the desk and the guys talking about what's coming up. Then you go to the actual coaches and players, and that's what we tried to make it. And I thought we did a pretty good job at that. I thought Jeff gave us every ability to be successful. All the information at our hands so we can ask questions. And I will say, Jeff probably didn't want me to say this, but he wrote down like 4 or 5 questions throughout the day that he told me or Tyler to ask, and there were a lot of like technique questions and stuff that a football coach would want to be asked, considering that he was a former football coach. And that was pretty cool to have him say, hey, maybe you should ask this or ask this question. And I thought that the players were just so well spoken. They were energetic, and I'm excited about this upcoming season. But all in all, for Muskogee County, my personal experience was a very good one. And again, thank you to Jeff and Debbie for allowing us to go live for the entirety of that event.
It was absolute success, and I had a great time. That being my first media days, and I new in this industry. I've been doing media for about 2 years now, and just to have that confidence, just to be with the other broadcasting colleagues asking those questions. Yeah. And we want to have that information. We heard from all 8 football coaches from all the public schools in Columbus. We heard from 2 players. There were some funny quotes. There were some memorable moments. Just like in any typical media days, you're going to have some good sound bites. And we pretty much got what we needed as the media. And it was a great event.
It was a fantastic event. And, I mean, we could use every adjective known to man if we wanted to. We have our questions.
Like, it was phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Like, I've already used it once, too. But I thought the flow of it wasn't long-winded. We were able to ask 4 or 5 questions with the players, ask 4 or 5 questions with the coaches. Some teams brought more than 2 players. Only 2 players, though, were allowed to talk at the event. And I just thought that they were really prepared. And some of the guys, they got nervous, but this is a learning experience for them. This is the first time they've been in front of the media. And if they're going to go on to play college athletics, they're going to have to get used to media members asking them questions. And I thought they handled themselves very well. So personal experience, A+ for me, A+ for you in Muskogee County. We're going to move on now to our quotes. And we got some good ones. I didn't want to pick 7 or 8. We could have, but we try to keep it simple. We just want to do one quote from each of us that we liked. I'm going to start first. One of the quotes was from Coach Oropeza over at Northside. And last year he won the first region championship with Northside, a team that was 9-1 during the regular season, had a bunch of guys that made all-region team. They had 2 guys, including Malachi Hosley and Mr. Deloach, the linebacker, go and play Division I or high-level college football this upcoming season. Really good team, successful year. And he talked about it's easy to have success in one season. Okay, every now and then, the old saying, a blind squirrel can find a nut every now and then. That can happen with teams. They can get lucky. The schedule can play out where they are maybe not the greatest team, but they can get 8 or 9 wins and make the playoffs. But sustaining that success and continue it over a long period of time, that's the hard part. That's the part that Kirby Smart and Nick Saban have done a great job at the next level with Georgia and Alabama. And it's something that we've seen a lot of high schools around this area, including Carver. No matter the coach, they seem to always be successful every single year. But he really harped on how last year was good, but now it's time to move on to this year, and he wants to continue that. And I thought he is a really good coach. He's got a really good staff, and I think that quote in itself represents not just him, but a lot of schools. Spencer winning a region championship. They want to continue that. They don't want to just be a one-hit wonder. Carver, Hardaway, Shaw, teams that made the playoffs last year that want to take it to the next level, maybe make a deeper run. It's hard to do that over several year period. So that is why I think that's one of the best quotes of the day, because it applied to almost all the schools, especially the ones that had a lot of success last year. What was your favorite quote? And I actually like it a lot, Richard.
Well, my favorite quote was the Jordan head football coach, Cadell Jenkins. In his second season, remember what the Jordan Red Jackets team faced in 2021. They had to cancel their season because of lack of players, injuries, and that was the COVID year. And it was detrimental to the team, the fan base, the alumni of just a historic program, the Jordan Red Jackets. Yep. They came back in 2022, played a full season. And I know Coach Jenkins is going to be the first to tell you it's not about wins and losses. He is building something special. They have a lot of freshmen and sophomores. Yep. And you look at what Coach Jenkins is doing in his second year, I'm really excited to see the Jordan Red Jackets. But anyway, the quote, he's talking about the new running back, Cameron Howard. Now, may I remind you, Cameron Howard is a wrestler at Jordan. This is what Jordan is known for. Coach Jenkins convinced him to be the starting fullback for the Red Jackets. And the quote reads that he's the first one in the weight room, last one to leave, last one to clean up the locker room. Yes, sir. No, sir. He's the one your daughter would want to go to prom with. And I thought that was really a cool quote.
And I think it says how he talks about his character. Yes. And obviously, as a father of two young girls, you're not sending your daughters off with just any young man. He's got to be a young man that you can trust and make sure he's going to take care of your daughter's safety-wise or whatever it may be and treat her the right way. So that quote, in essence, is talking about him personally and his personality, which I think is pretty cool. And I think all in all, though, the winner of the media day for Muskogee County has to be Coach Jenkins. Now, Jordan was an afterthought. 2020, they ended the season early. A lot of their players transferred to other places, including Tyson McDaniels. He was at Jordan. That year happened. Guess what? He ends up going to Spencer. So a lot of guys that were at Jordan end up leaving because of the shortened 2020 season. So 2021, they didn't even have a football team. So they used that entire year to rebuild, try to get better. And then in 2022, Coach Jenkins was given the opportunity to take over. Coach Scott hired him, and he talked about they learning, growing pains. He did win a lot of accolades because of what he does off the field and not just on the field, because obviously they went 0-10. But it's not about winning and losing. He talked about that. He wants to get boys to men. Okay, exactly. He wants to turn these young men into great community leaders and guys that can accomplish anything they want in their life, albeit on the football field or wherever else it may be. And obviously, his personality, he was a no-nonsense type of guy. He seems like he's a lot of fun to be around. I know him personally. He's a really good guy. And I think that they are going to surprise some teams this year. They may get 1 or 2 wins. And in my book, with the way this program was 2 years ago, which was a morbid, dead program, he wins 1 or 2. I'm putting him in the category of Coach of the Year. Again, because of everything he's having to overcome. And he talked about getting his new staff, Chris Smith, who came from Pacelli. He's over there now this year. And I think Jordan's going to be set up for long-term success. Maybe initially they won't get it now, the 4 or 5 wins, try to compete for playoffs. But 6-7 years down the line, I think Coach Jenkins has them on the right track.
Well, that first game is that Thursday night, August the 24th. They're taking on a rival, the Columbus Blue Devils. We also heard from them and Coach Marino in media days. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the running back, Cameron Howard. I think that he could have a very good season. And we did hear him speak at media days. He was very well spoken. And he's saying all the right things. And I think that Cam Howard is going to be a very good addition to the Red Jackets.
I think he's going to be a great addition to the Red Jackets. And he didn't play in 2022 because in 2021, he was told that he had to play offensive line. And he's like, no, I don't want to play that. I want to play running back. Yeah. Well, the coach said, all right, well, we'll let you play running back. Season gets here. he's back on offensive line. So, of course, he quit and said, I'm not playing football anymore. He lost the trust of the coaching staff. So Coach Jenkins did a recruiting pitch on him, said, I'm going to let you play the position that you want to play. And guess what? Now we're seeing a guy that's probably going to be one of the top fullbacks and running backs in the area. And I believe in Coach Jenkins' offensive repertoire and what he has going heading into this year when it talks about schemes and play, his playbook and the different playmakers he's trying to get out in space. I like the Jordan Red Jackets. And there was a comment on our live stream that talked about how sharp their jerseys were. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
They look nice. The black jerseys, the red jackets swarm. That's what they like to say. They're swarming because that's what yellow jackets or red jackets do. But all in all, Coach Jenkins, in my opinion, he had to have been one of the key winners for Muskogee County Media Day. Do you have a different one, Richard?
Well, there's no doubt about it. I liked Coach Jenkins, and really, when we talk about Media Days, Coach Jenkins, he really stole the show with his personality and his quotes.
And that's what we want as members of the media. We don't want, monotone, no personality to be shown. Bill Belichick. We like guys like a Lane Kiffin. We like guys that show their personality, that are funny, but also understand the importance of a media day and not making light of it. I think Coach Jenkins did an awesome job. Moving on from that, and we talked about our quotes. We're going to do a quick synopsis of each of the teams. We're going to do a preview today. Also, next week will be a longer version of the preview show. Today's more about recapping the media days. So, first off, we're going to start with the first team that actually went into, and I'm using the packet right here, in media days, which was the Carver Tigers. A team that made it to the state championship in 2021. Richard, I was able to be a part of the broadcast with DJ Jones of SportsVisions as they made it all the way to the championship game, a loss in a heartbreaking fashion. Coach Joyner leaves. Last year was Coach Coffey's first year. They go 9-3. They win one game and make it to the quarterfinals last year. Actually win 2 playoff games, losing the quarterfinals. And I think Coach Coffey, who's had success at Spencer, had the first winning season back in 2015. That was the first time in like 20 years. Then goes to Chattahoochee County, has built a top-notch program so much that when Coach Ryan McKenzie, the new Hardaway coach, stepped in, they continued the winning ways because of the foundation left by Coach Coffey. And then he comes into Carver. And when you take over a team that just almost won a state championship, it's hard for players to buy in because they're like, well, we've already done it. What are you going to bring this any different? We were this close. But they all bought in. And now this year, he talked about it. He has a good senior class, but what he's really looking forward to is that sophomore and junior class that he's got coming up because he says those guys are going to make Carver one of the top not only programs in maybe the Tri-City, the state of Georgia, but maybe even nationally. But he still thinks this year they have a team that could compete. And I think Coach Coffey has a really good Carver Tiger team. I'm looking at some of their key players, Braylon Jakes and Anthony Wilson. Braylon Jakes led the team in receiving yards last year. He comes back as a junior. And Anthony Wilson, the linebacker, had 87 tackles, 22 tackles for loss, and was an all-region player as a sophomore. What about you, Richard? What are some of the other guys and some other things you're taking away with Carver heading into this year?
Well, when you think of the Carver Tigers, you think of a long tradition of winning football in players that play at the next level. They won a state championship back in 2006. They've had great NFL players like Isaiah Crowell, Nate Odoms, a safety for the Buffalo Bills, Jarvis Jones, who is just an incredible defensive end for Georgia and went on to play for the Steelers. Yep. And such great players, and then the list just continues. Kelton Smith is now at the next level. He played on Carver last year. Jamari Riley has gone on to play at the next level, and Carver is going to continue that winning tradition. And I think not only are they going to be one of the top teams in their region, but they can compete for a state title.
And they have continued to compete for a state title over the last 4 or 5 years, and then going back to the Del McGee tenure, obviously winning multiple, or winning a state championship, making it to multiple Final Fours, shows you the pedigree and the winning ways of Carver. And I think Coach Coffey's staff is one of the top staffs in the Tri-City. I'm really proud of all the staffs here in Muskogee County, but obviously with Carver, Coach Coffey's got a lot of continuity with these guys. These guys he brought from Chattahoochee County, and they come here at Carver. He gets guys like Damian Daniels, okay, the Nighthawk, the guy you call with the Lions, led the all-time leader in interceptions and interception returns for touchdowns. Hall of Famer, probably in the Chattahoochee County area, going to be a Chattahoochee Valley Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
He's coaching the DBs. What better way to learn from or learn the DB position than from a guy like Damian Daniels?
And a guy who was playing for the Lions last year. They're looking up to him saying that he's still playing at a high level. We're going to buy into what he's telling us.
Carver looking to repeat off of the previous year's success. Quarterfinals last year, trying to make it to the Final Four, at least the state championship this year. It's only a matter of time for Coach Coffey gets his first one. Again, we're not going to go schedule by schedule breakdown. We'll try to do that next week. It will be a more longer version of our preview for the upcoming season, but we just want to hash a little bit on what we expect as a group with these teams. You know, talking about the coaching staff, the different players. Next week we'll go by schedule. Game-by-game breakdown with their schedules. The next team is the Columbus Blue Devils. They have the longest tenure coach in Phil Marino. He's in his 40th year of educating and coaching, his 15th season for the Columbus Blue Devils. He's made the playoffs several years. He had to overcome a lot of health issues last year, Richard. And to see someone like him who overcomes that adversity, still manages to coach his team, has his staff believe in his message, I mean, if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what does. And I think that he's definitely got a team now with the Columbus Blue Devils. He says he's got a lot of seniors coming back this year. He's got a lot of experience. He's got more experience on the offensive, defensive line. And if you want to win in high school football, having the big boys up front with experience and that are talented, those guys can lead you to multiple wins in a state championship run. I think that's what he has this year, and I like their quarterback and Robert Harford, who's a senior and was also one of their leading defensive players last year. So Coach was making a joke. I don't know we'll see him much on defense considering we don't want our quarterback getting hurt, but the Blue Devils should be a team to reckon with this year.
Absolutely, and I feel they're going to improve. They went 3-8 last year. They did not win a game in the region, but you know, they start the season out playing at the Jordan Red Jackets. They play rivals like Northside and Shaw, and then they got a tough region because they are in Carver's region in 3A. And you also have teams like Thomasville, Crisp County, Doherty, and Monroe. And Columbus is just wanting to improve, and they play hard for Coach Marino. And they do have a lot of seniors. And, you know, when you think of great athletics at Columbus, yes, we think of the other sports, but remember, Frank Thomas played football for Columbus. I mean, you know, he was a tight end. I mean, there's been some great players that played at Columbus High on the gridiron as well as the other sports, basketball and baseball.
Yep. Got to look out for who was at Media Days. Very well spoken. Love this personality. Tyrion McGowan. He was the starting offensive and defensive line. He was all-region last year with 11 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 25 solo tackles as an interior defensive lineman. That's tough to do. And he's the leader on the offensive line. I like Tyrion McGowan, and I think he's going to be one of the main reasons why Columbus High is going to be successful, because those big guys are allowing Harford an opportunity to throw the ball and allowing the running backs a whole to be able to get, you know, that tough yardage in between the tackles, and plus on defense, clogging up what should be a really good, experienced defense for the Columbus Blue Devils.
And that first game is going to be August the 18th against the Northside Patriots. A very big, tough test.
No, August 17th against the Jordan Red Jackets, I thought was – it's
actually, I'm looking at August 24th is the Jordan Red Jackets.
Okay, so I misspoke. Sorry about that. There is no August 17th game because we do have our schedule up, but that's why my stat guy right here is going to correct me. Next team, Hardaway Hawks. By the way, both those teams, Carver and Columbus, they're in 3A, okay, and they are in the same region. A team that's in 4A is the Hardaway Hawks, and they are led by their new coach, Ryan McKenzie. Rich, I'll let you tell us where Ryan's come from, and in his first season, we expect big things.
Well, Coach McKenzie comes from Chatco. He's taken over a Hardaway Hawks program that went 2-8 last year, 1-3, and we're on the doorsteps of the playoffs. They had a tiebreaker situation with Westover and Shaw, and so they missed out on the playoffs. Went to the playoffs the year before, And we all know Hardaway is also the home of the 5-star defensive end, Mykel Williams, that is now playing at Georgia. And really, these players are buying into what Coach McKenzie is selling as a Hardaway Hawk. And they've had success, had a tough schedule last year, Thrift. I mean, you look at their 2-8 record. I mean, they had to play Carver, they had to play Troup County, they had to play Harris County, they had to play Peach County.
Yep.
I mean, they had a gauntlet, and I'm looking at their schedule. They still got to play all these teams. They opened the season against the Carver Tigers, and I expect it's going to be a challenge. But, you know, they're going to be battle-tested. Coach McKenzie has got a good program, and he's got a good philosophy, and I think that Hardaway is going to surprise some people this year. I think that they are going to, because they were so close, that I think that they could get over the hump and make the playoffs this year, and that's really the goal for the Hardaway Hawks in coming into this 2023 season.
Being the head guy at Chattahoochee County gave him a lot of experience in winning. He took over for Coach Pierre Coffey in his 2 years, made the playoffs, made an Elite 8 run, and he's made the playoffs 6 times. He's got 2 region championships as a head coach at Chattahoochee County, 1, and then some of the other schools. I don't know his other school that he was a coach at. We just have the different high schools that he was either offensive line coach or head coach. I know he was at Chattahoochee County. He's taken over a team 2 years ago, made the playoffs. Last year, didn't live up to expectations. They go find a new guy in Coach McKenzie. I talked with Coach Kendall Mills during our coaches conversation, State of the Program tour. And Richard, he's excited about this upcoming year, and he thinks that Coach McKenzie's the right guy to lead this program and get them under the direction and under the winning ways that we were used to seeing during the early 2000s with Hardaway and going back to when Jeff Battles was the coach there for a long time. Bobby Gary, freshman, is going to be starting quarterback.
I'm excited to see Bobby Gary. We saw him at media days, and he looks like he's ready to go. I mean, he's one of these players that he's just ready, and we're going to see him for a very long time in a Hardaway Hawks uniform, hopefully.
He's coming from Richards. He's only a freshman. You can tell he was a little bit nervous, but Coach McKenzie believes in him, and if he can have a guy to start for him for 4 years, can only imagine how good Bobby Gary is going to be as he heads into his senior year with the Hawks. Antonio Nunley, Jalen Hatchett. Antonio Nunley was the middle linebacker. He had 15 tackles as a JV as a linebacker last year. They're expecting big things on the varsity team. DeVaris Jesse is a junior defensive line. He had graded out at 80% in offensive line play, which I think is a very good number. I was talking with Jeff Battles. That's something you don't see, and that all is credit to his technique. And he said he's improved even more heading in now to his junior. And Jalen Hatchett, their tight end, he had 7 catches for 91 yards last year. He's expecting to get more touches heading into this season. They're expected to throw the ball a lot more now, too, even with a freshman quarterback. So, Coach Ryan McKenzie coming in his first year with the Hardaway Hawks, looking to try to take them back to the playoffs, first time since 2021, and it's going to be good to see that gold and red back competing for region championships. Any last words on Hardaway before we move on, Richard?
Well, I just think when you think of Hardaway, you think of a very historic program. The AD, Kendall Mills, has done a great job with their programs, their basketball teams, and now we're excited about football and the Hardaway Hawks. I mean, they're going to be a team that you got to look out for because they're coming.
They are coming, and another team that's coming, and we talked about a lot early on in this broadcast, the Jordan Red Jackets with Coach Cadell Jenkins. They like to call him Coach K. Coach K coached at a local private school and was also at Shaw High School before being named the Jordan head football coach back in 2022. He was a defensive coordinator and defensive line coach for many years in the Muskogee County School District, and he has done a great job energizing, because we can't state that enough. When you take over a program as bad as Jordan was, and we're not going to make light of it, it was a bad program back in 2019, 2020, 2021. So bad that they were just going through coaches left and right. And now to have a guy that wants to be there, doesn't plan on leaving, and has a vision and is very energetic and believes in everything that Coach Scott's trying to implement, the AD at Jordan. I think both those guys I think highly of. They don't have all the resources like some of the other schools around the area, but that doesn't stop him from competing, and that doesn't stop him from coaching his guys hard. Obviously, we talked about him being the winner of the media days. We talked about Cam Thomas Also, Davin James, the quarterback, returning from last year. It was a 2-quarterback system. He's supposed to be getting the majority of the snaps this year. Claude Ballard, running back, linebacker, Latrell Shingles, and DeKavian Thomas. These are some of the key players looking in this year. Thomas is a defensive end tight end. It's a first-year starter. He's a junior. Claude Ballard, like I talked about, running back, and then Latrell Shingles, sophomore wide receiver / DB. Jordan, winning this year, in my opinion, Richard, is not about wins and losses. It's about, can they improve? Can they go from getting beat by 70 points the previous seasons to being competitive in the first half and maybe only losing by 15 or 20 or 10 points or even maybe getting a win or two? I think that's how we should measure success with Jordan, and I think that's what Coach Jenkins is doing too, and I think he's going to have a team that is going to improve every single week.
Jordan, one of the oldest schools in Columbus, they do have a very good fan base. I got the privilege to meet an AD, Russell Scott, and then they are proud of their athletics at Jordan. I mean, yes, they are known for wrestling and track and field, but if we can build up that football program, get Jordan fans out there at Kennett Stadium or A.J. McClung or wherever they're going to play their home games and see improvement. And I expect the Jordan Red Jackets to not only improve this year, but I think that they are going to drastically improve, and they're probably going to be in games. Remember, after the reclassification, they went down to 2A. Yes, there are 8 teams in their region, including Spencer and Kendrick. And, they play Kendrick at the end of the season. They play Spencer on September 29th, some of the key games.
Yep.
They play Shaw. That is a big rival as well. And they open the season with the Columbus Blue Devils. I want to see improvement. I think the Jordan Red Jackets can do it under Coach Jenkins.
And Coach Jenkins, like I said, bringing energy to a program that was lifeless is probably the biggest thing that he has going for him right now. And I think it's awesome that he is now the head man and he plans on being there for a long time. That gives these Jordan players an opportunity, Richard, to maybe go to play at the next level. They don't have to transfer. They can do it right here at Red Jackets Nation. Great job by them. I'm going to let you do the next team, the Kendrick Cherokees. Another 2A school that don't have all the resources, but Coach Robert Martin in his second year is looking to improve and trying to get his team back to playoff form.
Coach Martin led the Kendrick Cherokees to a 1-9 record last year. They were 1-6 in the region. But when we think of the Kendrick Cherokees, Coach Martin is the right coach for the job. He's going to turn around this program. And Kendrick, with the new reclassification, they're in the same region with Jordan at 2A. Yes, we do remember the Kendrick Cherokees winning the state championship back in 1992 with running back Dell McGee, who's a legend here, leading Carver to a state title, and also is probably up for a head coach in D1.
It's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time. The running backs coordinator at Georgia, and Kendrick can get back to that level. I remember asking that question at Media Days to Coach Martin: is what is it going to take to get the Kendrick Cherokees back to that level? Once again, a very old program here in Columbus, a lot of alumni, and just a big enrollment. And that southeast part of Columbus is Kendrick territory, and there's so many proud alumni that we know that would love to see Kendrick back on top. They're going to play majority of their home games at Otis Spencer Stadium, and what better way to have that state-of-the-art stadium and Kendrick back on the map and just being that powerhouse they once were in front of the bright lights of Otis Spencer Stadium. But it will take time. But I feel that Coach Martin is the right coach to get them in the right direction. And they do have a young team. And I feel like Jordan, Kendrick is going to improve as well.
And Kendrick, led by Coach Martin, who's in his 19th year coaching. He played collegiately at Morehouse. He's come as a defensive coordinator from Griffin High School, one of the top high schools in Atlanta, Best Academy, Grady, South Atlanta, and Banneker. All these teams up in the North Georgia area, and all these teams have a lot of success. So he brought that here to Kendrick, and in trying to, again, revitalize a program that we talked about in 1992, won a championship, but it's been a long time since they had a team that's been competitive in that region specifically. Coach Martin, first year, not great. Their record was, Richard, you have that?
1-9.
Yeah, 1-9, and the one win being against Jordan. But I think Jordan and Kendrick, they're schools that, and he alluded to this, if guys that live in his district and live near the Kendrick area go to Kendrick instead of other schools around the area, obviously there's a lot of talent in that Buena Vista Road, East Columbus area.
Absolutely.
If some of them were able to stay at Kendrick, that allows them to have competitive, talented players that makes them a team to reckon with, especially in 2A. I do like that Kendrick and Jordan moved down to 2A a few years ago. That's where they needed to be, not 3A or 4A. And I know it sometimes doesn't work out logistically when you're playing teams that are bigger than you or having to drive 45 minutes to an hour to your nearest school other than Jordan, but you want to be competitive. You want to play against teams that have similar number of football, not stats, but football players and football roster compared to yours. Bakari Little, he came with him. He's a receiver and DB. He had 210 yards running. He also had completed 15 of 23 passes last year, so he had to play a little bit of quarterback. He had 370 yards with 5 touchdowns. He also had 250 yards receiving. He was pretty much their end-all, be-all offensive player. And he had 37 tackles on the defensive side. Carius Collier. Carius was a senior coming into this year, running back, had 340 yards rushing, 120 yards receiving, and also plays on both sides of the ball. Both these guys are key players heading into Kendrick's season. Next team is the Northside Patriots. Coach Oropez's team went 9-1 last year in the regular season. Then they did win their first playoff game, played their second one against a team that won 4 straight state championships. Richard, you called that game. I'll let you talk about it.
Well, I mean, they won their region, first time in a long time, and they reached the second round of the playoffs. And it was just a great season. They had an overall 10-2 record, 4-0 in the region. They were the number 1 seed. They beat Tucker in the first round, but they were going up against the back-to-back champion, the Warner Robins Demons, who were going for a three-peat. Warner Robins has got, for some reason, they were the number 2 seed because
terrible seeding.
They were in a tough region, and they got the number 2 seed. And so even though Northside was hosting a playoff game in the second round, here comes Warner Robins. They ended up winning the game 38-7. They neutralized Malachi Hosley.
Yeah.
They put 7 in the box, and Malachi Hosley could not break through for a run. I was expecting a breakthrough run from Malachi Hosley.
Let's be honest, though, Richard.
It was not happening.
Bad seeding. And honestly, you shouldn't be playing a team like Warner Robins, who's won consecutive state championships, until the semifinals. And
I agree.
That's the way. That's when Northside got the bad luck. They didn't get the luck of the draw this time. They got the bad luck, and they got the bad bracket side of, or the bad side of the bracket for 5A. And they're the only 5A school in the Columbus area. Morgan Ingram, AD there, he has allowed Coach Andrew Oropeza, everything he needs to be successful. I talked about how his quote was my quote of Muskogee County Media Day. He talked about sustaining success, and he's going to have to replace a lot of great guys, but one of the guys coming back is a guy that's been a quarterback now for the last 2 seasons, Caden Clay. He's got a terrific arm. He's a heck of an athlete. Last year, Caden Clay had 1,400 yards passing. This is with Malachi Hosley having close to 2,000 yards rushing.
Yeah.
15 touchdowns. He also had 9 rushing touchdowns, close to 600 yards on the ground. I expect big things for them. I asked a question, let Caden cook. Coach Oropeza laughed in the background, but Caden's like, man, Coach Oropeza puts me in the position to be successful. And I think him and the guys that got coming back, including Ward Walker, who's going to step in for linebacker Deloach. Remember, Raymond Deloach last year was a heck of a player.
Right.
He moves on to go to Air Force, so he's going to take over that position. And Walker was an all-region player last year, and Oropeza talked about he may have been the better linebacker statistic-wise than Deloach. That's saying a lot from a guy that's going to play at Air Force next year. Jacquez Tyner, offensive lineman, senior, and Ja'Cory Luttrell, the DB, did a great job talking about how he expects to have many interceptions. He wants to lead the city in interceptions. I love confidence like that. And I think this Northside team is going to compete again for another region championship.
And they're only in a region with 5 teams, which means only 4 teams make the playoffs. But they have a very tough region. You know that their rival Harris County is going to improve this year. McIntosh is going to be tough. Northgate. I mean, Drew was the team that missed out on the playoffs last year. They did not win a single game. Drew out of Riverdale. But, you know, Drew is going to have something to prove. But their region that they're playing in, I'm telling you, Northside, I mean, I know they want to try to get back there, but, you know, everybody is improved, and it's going to be a challenge, but Northside is capable of winning back-to-back region champions.
I agree with you, Richard, and I think North Side should be another team to reckon with in this area that hopefully maybe brings home a state championship. Moving on, we go to a school they call Shaw U. Shaw High School was the premier athletic school in the early 2000s. Coach Charles Flowers, we know his pedigree, the history, winning a state championship in football and baseball in that year 2000, making it to several state championships again in 2006, where he lost to Peach County. By the way, you know who the coach of that Peach County team was?
Rance Gillespie.
Rance Gillespie of Brookstone, which we'll talk about in a minute. We did their media day as well. We didn't forget about you, Brookstone. We were just going to tackle Muskogee County first. But the last 10 years, Shaw has not lived up to the standard that we were used to seeing for a long period of time. And Coach Al Pellegrino passed away suddenly, and we were devastated by that news. He's a great guy, great human being, excellent coach. Coach Blair Harrison had to take over a program in not the greatest fashion. And he thought he did a great job. The Shaw Raiders went 4-6 last year, did make the playoffs. And now Coach Harrison's like, you know what? I had to take over the AD because Coach Pellegrino was the AD and the football coach. Coach Harrison took over as the AD, which he did have experience. He came from Brookstone, was the winningest coach at Brookstone, so it's not like he was just some random coach. He's a guy that has a lot of winning ways, and he was AD there. So he was used to the position he's in now. It's just the way he had to take over it was very sad. And Coach Harrison decided he wants to only do AD role this year, and he hired a guy by the name of Johnny Gardner. And Coach Gardner is related to Charles Flowers. So it brings in a guy related to the guy that had all the winning ways at Shaw High School. Coach Gardner's energetic. Coach Gardner's got a lot of great experience. He's coached under Coach Joe Kegler. He's coached under Coach Pierre Coffey, Coach Joyner, Coach Dell McGee. All these guys instrumental in who he's becoming as now the head guy at Shaw. And I believe in him. And I know you're really close with the Shaw program. I'll allow you to talk about what the hiring of Coach Gardner and how excited you are about Shaw football this upcoming year.
First of all, Thrift, I want to say home run hire. I had the privilege of being at Coach Gardner's press conference when he was introduced as the Shaw head football coach. I know he has been on SportsVisions. He's really had this program just excited about Shaw football. I mean, energetic. His practices are intense. He's featured on the documentary. Big shout out to Rex Castillo and Drew Plata for In the Trenches. And it's a great documentary. And the Shaw Raiders is just going to only continue to develop. And Coach Harrison got them in the right direction. He had a good season making the playoffs, but he's got the right guy to take over the realm. And I know that Coach Gardner is going to have a lot of success. Now, they're going to lose a lot on the running back position because Jalen Bass has gone on. I mean, he rushed for over 900 yards last year. But the Shaw Raiders, they have some guys, a young team that is in the wings, and they should, like Jacavius Mason. I had the privilege of seeing him as I was the public address announcer for their basketball team. You know, he is a tremendous athlete. He's going to have a big season for the Shaw Raiders, and they open on the road down in Buena Vista, taking on Marion County. So I expect to see a lot of Shaw fans making that trip. It's not that far. It's like 30 minutes. I mean, I love seeing like these big schools go into these small towns to play football. And that's going to be a fun game to start the season against Marion County.
I agree with you, Richard, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching this Shaw team grow up right before our eyes, including the way we've seen Coach Gardner grow up. Nicholas Bate returns as the senior quarterback and the leader of this team. Jacavius Mason, the tight end, returning starter from last year, expected to get a lot of touches on that side of the ball. Josiah Williams, outside linebacker, one of the best defensive players in the city. And then Christian Kimbrough, an offensive lineman that's going to help Nicholas Bates stay upright. It's going to be a little bit of a different offense. Coach Gardner, he wants to throw the ball. He's more up-tempo, as Coach Harrison likes the wing tee and likes running the ball that way.
Right.
So it's going to be different in that aspect. But the foundation of being tough-nosed, in between the trenches, guys that are going to be all about hustling to the football, that's not going to change, and excited to see Shaw. The last thing we're going to talk about is the Spencer Green Waves. Coach Joseph Kegler, a guy that had an opportunity to coach at Carver for a few seasons before he got the opportunity to take over as the lead man for the Green Waves. When Coach Coffey had his winning team back in 2015, and he left, I think it was 2015 to 2018, he was the lead guy at Spencer, goes to Chattahoochee County for 3 years, 2019 to 2021, then comes back here to Carver in 2022. During that 3-year stint, it was the winningest Spencer's been in about 50 years. So when you take over that, obviously people are going to be like, I mean, is Coach Kegler going to do a good job? Is he going to win? Is he going to keep on the tradition that we're starting to see now? Hopefully a tradition we're starting to see now with Coach Coffey, that he left with us, and Coach Kegler won a region championship last year. Went 8-3, 8-2 in the regular season. Had all-region players in Gary Gaither, who led the city in passing, and I expect him to continue that. He is an all-world quarterback, and by the way, that's not even his favorite sport, and he didn't even want to play football. Coach Kegler told him, hey, you're pretty good at this quarterback thing. Maybe you should try out with us. They do lose Tyson McDaniels, Tony Montgomery, Vashawn Moody, TJ Cochran. All these guys are elite basketball players, also instrumental in the success on the football side. But this past summer, Spencer won the 7-on-7 Muscogee County School District Tournament. And that has to talk about the skill set players and the quarterback, specifically Gary Gaither. 2,043 yards passing last year, 22 touchdowns, and he's only going to get better as a senior this year. Coach Kegler said he's going to let him loose, and we're going to see the best version of Gary Gaither. I know they lost a lot last year, but there's still a lot of talent at Spencer, as you've seen on their JV teams and their skill set players that come off the bench, and all of a sudden you got a random receiver running down the field for 80 yards and a touchdown. Spencer Green Waves, they got it going, and I believe in Coach Gaither.
I got to say, one of my favorite quotes from Dre Duncan, when he said that his main goal was to beat Carver this year.
Hey, we'll be talking about another team that talked about one of their main goals, beating their rival, here in a moment. But you're right, beating Carver would be a big deal. They're not in the same region. They're not even in the same classification. Carver 3A, Spencer 2A. But we all know about how big this rivalry is. Absolutely. I mean, heck, it's even got a name.
It's called the Heritage Bowl. And we already know it's going to be August the 25th. And when we have our show next week, we're going to preview the weeks. And there is a week where they just have monster game after monster game. And it's like, how can we want to be at all of them, but it is very difficult because of all these games, and that's one of the games.
Spencer should be a team to reckon with in that 2A region. They are also in the same region as Kendrick and Jordan. I don't know why I didn't mention them. They are all in the same region. That was a slip up by me. But Coach Kegler can try to sustain that success that we talked about with Coach Orpeza. It's easy to win in one season. It's harder to continue to do it year after year after year. And they expect to, and it's going to start with their lead guy, Gary Gaither. Another guy, like you talked about, Dre Duncan. 43 tackles, 3 interceptions, 12 pass breakups. Dre Duncan, elite basketball player. As I say that with a lot of Spencer guys, because they've been in the premier basketball school around the area along with Pacelli. But he's also a great football player as well. So those are all the 8 schools and a quick synopsis we did with them. We'll go schedule by schedule breakdown and game by game breakdown of all the schedules for these teams and the rest of the Tri-City area next week. We are going to talk about Brookstone Media Day here real quick, and then after that we'll do a quick 5-minute preview of Pacelli, Glenwood, and Calvary. We didn't get to, either they didn't have a media day or we didn't make it to the media day that they did have. So we'll talk about them a little bit. We won't touch on Smith Station, Central, Russell County, or Harris County right now. And shout out to Lynette, also Chip Siegel. We're going to touch all 5 of those schools next week first, along with Glenwood, Calvary, and Pacelli. So those 8 schools will start next week first, and then we'll go into the breakdown of the Muscogee County schools as we, talked a lot about them today. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to be at Brookstone and live stream their media day. Thank you to Sidney Tote and Rance Gillespie for allowing us to be there. Very hospitable. Gave us another great packet right here. And I'm just going to say this. If you've never been on Brookstone's campus, it's like a college campus. I mean, I was blown away. I almost got lost. Actually, I did get lost. I had to tell Rich, I was like, when you come outside and find me, I don't know where I'm at right now inside this school. But great job by them setting everything up. A great broadcast by me and you, obviously, but that was because of Sydney and rants, allowing us the opportunity and giving us the information we need. So Brookstone last year, they went 8-4, and lost in the semifinals on a last-second heartbreaking play to Cam Ellis and the Pacelli Vikings. 4th and 25 will ever be ingrained in that Pacelli season because no one thought Cam Ellis was going to be able to get a first down. 4th and 25, nobody's open. I remember seeing him scramble. Heck, I got the highlight on my phone, seeing him scramble and able to find a way to get that first down, and they end up scoring the game-winning touchdown the very next play. If Brookstone stops him anywhere, 24 yards, 23 yards, before he gets to that first down line, we may be talking about Brookstone being the defending state champion in the GIAA Classification 3A. Coach Rance Gillespie's in his second year. He comes from Peach County, which he won multiple state championships. He was also the offensive coordinator for Georgia Southern, a Division I college. That's how good of a coach he is. He got an opportunity to be an offensive coordinator at Division I college. So this was a home run hire for Brookstone. He comes in, lays a foundation, and they start winning immediately. And I think they're going to continue that success this year. Richard, what are some of the things you took away from yesterday?
Well, I was just blown away with all 6 seniors. We got to have more players being interviewed as all the seniors got to be interviewed for Media Day.
And I have all 6 of them right here, if you don't mind, Richard. Swift Branch, who is a receiver, defensive back. Lane Cannon, running back. Ian McGarry, offensive lineman, defensive lineman. Brooks Roney, quarterback. Chris Vickerson, tight end, defensive end. And Holt Young, the offensive lineman. And my quote of the day, and I think this was a reoccurring theme throughout all of the seniors and Coach Gillespie, was their number one goal was to
beat Pacelli.
And that's their and beating Pacelli, obviously, it's not just their rival, but you're beating a team that just won the state championship. So they are a team that has, obviously, they're the top dog. They're the team you want to knock off the mountain. They're the hunted. They're the team you're trying to go after and find. And Brookstone thinks that, Pacelli, a team that they have lost the last 2 years, they haven't seen that Pacelli jug. If they won 6 straight years before the last 2 seasons, they want that thing back. But that was one of the biggest things they talked about. Obviously, they play Glenwood first game of the year. They have a brutal 4-game stretch in the middle of the season, playing against Stratford on the road, team that played the state championship. Pacelli on the road, team that won a state championship. So, obviously, they want to start off hot, but Coach Gillespie thinks that with his revamped roster, his coaching staff, and the continuity that he's got, he thinks this team could be just as good, if not better, than last year's.
I'm excited to see Brookstone this year. I think quarterback Brooks Roney comes in. I mean, he's got a lot of confidence. He is the guy. Lane Cannon taking over for Dimitri Flowers.
But you got to mention, Richard, sorry to interrupt, but Brooks Roney's taking over for a guy that last year, Andrew Alford, who was up there with Gary Gaither as one of the top passing yards leaders in the Tri-City area. He moved on to another school, so now Brooks Roney is going to get an opportunity. And I think hearing from Coach Gillespie, he had a great relationship with him this offseason. He coached him hard, as he does all quarterbacks. He's a quarterback whisperer. But Brooks talked about it. They got a love-hate relationship, but they respect each other, and he would not want to play for anyone else, and he thinks he is more than capable of leading this team to a championship run. But now you're talking about Lane Cannon.
I'm excited about Lane Cannon. He averaged 8.9 yards a carry last year as the backup to Dimitri Flowers. Dimitri Flowers has gone on to college, and now Lane Cannon is the guy that Brooks Roney is going to hand off to. And I think that Brookstone, even though they got that brutal road schedule, they're going to be competitive. I cannot wait to see that game against Glenwood at Max Strong Stadium. It was a close game in the Swamp last year. It was a 25-23 score. Brookstone won. But Glenwood also has a great team coming back, and that's going to be a great matchup come August 25th.
Looking at their schedule, if they can get by First Presbyterian Day, which they beat on the road last year, and Glenwood in those first 2 games, and be undefeated, I think this team could easily be 8-2, 7-3 at the end of the year, vying for another chance to win a state championship or get a decent run in the GIAA. I think one thing I loved about it when talking with these guys, they called the stadium the MAC, I think that's a great name for a stadium.
Truly is.
Considering Max Strong, the Hall of Famer and all-pro fullback for the Seattle Seahawks for a long period of time, was a great Brookstone football player back in the day in the early 90s. But this Brookstone team, they got a lot of seniors coming back. They do have to replace a different quarterback, but Coach Gillespie thinks there's enough talent on this team to maybe win another or make it to another state championship run. Last year, lost in the Final Four to Pacelli. Expect great things this year. Thank you again to Coach Gillespie. Thank you to everyone at Brookstone for being so hospitable, nice, and allowing us to live stream, giving us the information to talk about Brookstone in the proper way. And we expect to be there this year, live streaming some games. And shout out to Scott Miller, guy that we both look up to, a fantastic broadcaster, the voice of Columbus State Athletics. He was so proud of the broadcast we did yesterday, and we appreciate him, and we look forward to talking with him throughout the season and hopefully live streaming some games alongside what they have going on there on Cougar Live. So thank you again, everyone at Brookstone, and we're excited about them this upcoming season. Chris Vickerson, a guy I think's definitely looking like maybe going D1, defensive end. He's going to be hard to block, and tight end. He is an all-region basketball player. Was an all-region basketball and football player last year. Next step is being all-state. And if he can be that, look out Brookstone, because he is a force to reckon with. Brooks Roney, Swift Branch taking in for Walter Blanchard, who left to go to Georgia last year, Division I school. We expect great things from Walter, but Swift taking in over him. He's a different player. Walter's more of a big physical receiver. Swift's more of a scat back, a guy like a Wes Welker type, and even looted. That's what he wants to be this year. So Brookstone looking to continue the success from last year, and they got a great guy, Coach Rance Gillespie, doing that as well. Moving on now, we're going to touch on these schools quickly because we're going to go in more depth next week, and then we're going to have some random facts from Richard, and we're going to end the broadcast right at 1 hour. I was trying to do it about 45 minutes, but I knew there's so much information we're trying to get in these next first two shows that we're probably going to have to go at least an hour. First, we're going to start with Pacelli. Coach Dwight Jones, he's won everywhere he's been. Russell County, Harris County, you name it, he's been there. It's like 10 to 15 different schools that he's coached at. Took over Pacelli first year in a different organization. They weren't in GIAA, they were in the GHSAA private school sector of the Public School Association in Georgia, and they made it to the second round. Last year, first year in the GIAA, won a state championship. Shout out Coach Corey Black, the AD there, home run hire, and Coach Jones. They added some David Spitzmiller as the revamped staff. They did lose some guys, but they expect great things from this year's team. They're replacing Cam Ellis, replacing J.J. Thornton. Both the guys were leader on offense and defense. So, and they're replacing their running back, who had Jalen Turner, who was an elite running back last year. One of the main reasons their offense was so good. So, but with a team like Pacelli, we talk about this, and I emphasize this a lot. They don't rebuild; they reload every year, and I expect that this year with Pacelli. Their first game, we expect to be there at the Swamp, Sammy Howard Field. Glenwood Pacelli last year was a great game at Pacelli. This year's at Glenwood. I'm looking forward to it. Pacelli trying to repeat as state champions. Lost only one game last year, which was at Tatnall Square. They play Tatnall Square at home this year. We may be doing that game, wink, wink, talking to you, Corey Black. So they got Tatnall Square, of course, Stratford, Brookstone, and Glenwood. Pacelli's got a tough schedule, but they also got a lot of talent, and I expect them to compete again for another state championship. What about you, Richard?
Well, this matchup against Glenwood, this would not have been possible without the coordination from the AISA and the GIAA to have this matchup that wouldn't have been possible before. We got to see it last year at Diamond Field, which was a great game. Jalen Turner, JT Banks for Glenwood. It was a back-and-forth game, but Pacelli won 28-13. And now they get to go play in the Swamp. And Glenwood's got a great team coming back. Dallas Crow is coming back as their starting quarterback. They're going to lose some players on the Gator offense as well, but Glenwood, who went to the state championship, lost to Lee Scott Academy in the AISA finals, playing Pacelli, and you know that both fan bases are going to be there.
Yeah.
As they,
we're going to be there.
That visitor side. Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited I almost knocked the table over.
But that visitor side, because I've called some Glenwood games. That visitor side there's hardly anybody there. It's going to be nothing but red and blue, because those are Pacelli's colors. Over there on that visitor side, it's going to be a packed house.
Coach Jones versus Coach Nelson. Ryan Nelson, son of Coach Ron Nelson. And with that said, we're going to move on to Glenwood. Glenwood last year lost to Brookstone, lost to Pacelli, started 0-2. Many people thought, Glenwood, they're not going to be good. Then they play Lee Scott, the rival. They get blown out. They got 3 losses before they even head to week 5. Then they go on a winning streak.
They really did.
They got hot, and they got so hot that led them all the way to the state championship game. And they went against a buzzsaw in Lee Scott, and Lee Scott was undefeated last year, and they did beat them again in the state championship. But Coach Nelson, I think that was one of the surprise teams for me for the 2022 year, taking his team back to the state championship when previous year they lost in the state championship under a different guy and Coach.
We know him as the former Columbus Lions head coach.
I can't even
Coach Jason Gibson, who's about to coach the Jacksonville Sharks in the NAL Championship next week.
So Coach Jason Gibson was the coach. Nelson takes over. A lot of players left. There was a lot of transition.
Right.
And yet still able to take his team all the way to the state championship. This Glenwood team has a lot of returners. They even add some players from around the area that come back. Coach Nelson is excited. I talked to Coach Finn and the AD there. He thinks this could be the best Glenwood football team they've had in 5 or 6 years, and that's saying something because they made it to the state championship 3 times in the last 5 years. They have not won it yet. They made it in 2011. They made it again in 2017, made it again in 2021 and last year. They made it 4 times in the last 10 years, but could not get over the hump in winning that game. Think this year may be the year for them. Coach Nelson, his staff, remember Ron Nelson, his dad, legendary coach at Central, he's on this Glenwood staff. Coach Josh McConnell, the defensive coordinator, he's in there. He's been there for the last 15 years. I like this Glenwood coaching staff. I like this Glenwood team. And along with Pacelli, I expect them to make a repeat of the success last year. We talked about what Coach Oropeza, sustaining success. Remember his quote? That's what these teams are doing. Glenwood and Pacelli have been the premier schools of sustaining success over the last few years, and Glenwood is looking to repeat from last year, except this time win a state championship.
I cannot wait.
And you got to call some of their games.
Yes, I did. I even called the famous kicker knocked the lights out of the stadium. Every time I talk to Glenwood fans, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're the guy that called the kicker that kicked the lights out of the stadium." And they called the game because the game was so out of hand that they just played a half and they counted it as a win.
That happens sometimes in private school football. There are schools that should not be playing, some schools that get beat 60-0 in the first half. My senior year, we played a school by the name of Lyman Ward. It was 49-0 at the end of the first half. There's only so much you can do in the second half. Right. You don't want people to get injured. You just want that clock to run for both sides, whether you're losing by 49 or winning by 49. But Glenwood, expect great things from them. We'll go game by game breakdown for their along with Pacelli and Calvary next week. And speaking of Calvary, their team that won the state championship in 2020. Mm-hmm. They have made the playoffs every year under Coach Brian Osborne. Last year had a guy by the name of Jaden Mason, who at one point was leading the country in rushing yards. He did get injured because he was toting the ball so much, but he was heading for a 3,000-yard rushing season. I said that right. 3,000 yards rushing. That's something you hear with Derrick Henry back in the day. Not from a Calvary running back. He's gone, and so is Coach Osborne. Coach Steve Smith takes over from Marty Durden, the former AD. Great guy. I love Marty. He's moving on to greater things up in the North Atlanta area. And Coach Steve Smith, the winning baseball coach who's won 5 straight state championships in baseball, is now the AD. And he hired a guy that you know very well. So I'm going to let you talk about last year's team and then talk about the new guy that stepped into that role, Coach Emmanuel Brunson.
Yes, Coach Emmanuel Brunson, who played football at Jordan. He also coached at the club team for Columbus State. He was the head football coach for Pacelli's middle school team, and now he's the strength and conditioning coach and the head football coach of a Calvary Christian Knights team that went 6-5 last year. They did lose in the first round to the Keens Academy. And yes, they've lost Jaden Mason, but they have a great team coming back. And I know that Coach Brunson is the right coach for the job because he knows how to develop players. Yeah. And I know that Coach Black speaks highly of him because, having him at Pacelli and that level, teaching at the middle school level, and Coach Brunson is ready to go, and he's got a lot of experience. And I cannot wait for Calvary Christian football to eventually compete for a GAPS championship, and that's the ultimate goal, is to win the GAPS championship, and Calvary is in the right track.
And hopefully they may be making a transition to a new organization next year. Many people would love to see them in the GIAA.
That would be
being
nice.
Close to Pacelli and having them as a rival, and with Glenwood playing the AISA, being able to play all of them. So Calvary, looking for great things with you, with Coach Brunson. It should be a rebuilding year for the Calvary program. A lot of young guys. They're going to be starting a lot of freshmen and sophomore, but in the classification they're playing in, which is GAPS, they still can compete and still maybe make a decent playoff run. We're very high on Coach Brunson, and we'll talk about them more as we get more information from those three schools. We didn't get packets from them because we didn't get to go to their media days, but we'll accumulate that information and have enough to be able to talk about them and their game-by-game breakdown next week when we have episode 2 of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. All right, Richard, we're going to go ahead and transition to the last couple minutes of the show. I got a text last week from General Manager Lee Snow. He's the General Manager of the Columbus Lions. I should have started that off with first. And in his first season with the Lions, he helped lead them, along with Coach Chris McKinney, to a championship, albeit in a league that didn't have a great competition. They won every game by 40 points or more. One game they won 83-8. I mean, they were blowing these teams out left and right, but it had nothing to do with the talent. On Columbus' side, they were really talented, and they can compete with anyone. It had more to do with the teams they were playing against. So I got a text from Lee, and he asked me to be the lead play-by-play guy for this upcoming 2024 season. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the vision of Lee Snow, General Manager, President Casey Smith, a minority owner, and also majority owner Richard Mazzala. Great job by all of them. They have a bright future for the Lions. They're getting them back on track the way we saw them under Coach Jason Gibson. And I'm excited. They're going back into the American Indoor Football League. The league folded back in 2016. Guess what? The Lions, their last championship for this year was in 2016 in that American Indoor Football League. So the American Indoor Football League is getting back up. Lions are going to join it, and we're excited to be there, Richard. You got to be play-by-play and call games. Expect him. He's going to be with me again this year. Me and him will be tackling this every single week. Pre-game and post-game coverage will be right here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and we may be live streaming some of the games on our Facebook page along with the Columbus Lions YouTube page. So again, thank you to Richard Mazzala, Casey Smith, and Lee Snow for giving me this opportunity. I'm excited about where the Lions are heading. What about you, Richard?
I'm excited what the Lions did, winning their 4th championship. Marcus Brooks had a fantastic season. And I think that Marcus Brooks, we would love to see him back in the Lions uniform, but the NAL and the CIF and the indoor football, they're looking at him and saying, this is an incredible talent. Remember, the Lions had a lot of NAL players. And so they had such a great season. And I'm excited they're going back into the American Football League. When my first Columbus Lions game I went to was in 2016. They were in this league when they won the championship.
We got some random facts we're going to get into. That's going to be the last thing we do. Random facts with Richard. I highlighted both of them for you, Richard. But before that, first game we plan on broadcasting is Pacelli Glenwood. We are still getting confirmation from the schools about how we're going to do this. We plan on doing a lot of Muskogee County schools. I think it's up to 14 or 15 games. I mean, less than that, maybe like 12 games. I think we're doing Muskogee County. Don't quote me on that. I think it's 12. No,
it's 20.
Yeah, no, it's.
Oh.
This is why you're supposed to have research, which I do have research right here on my hand. And Richard,
you mean a total of 20 games,
total of 20 games
in the private schools.
Yeah, including the private schools. It is 10 games for Muskogee County that we're going to be doing. And a lot of them, 7 of them on Thursdays, 3 Friday games. We'll talk about all the schools and games we're going to be doing. Every school in Muskogee County school district will have a game we're live streaming.
Yes.
Some schools will have multiple games, and we're excited about doing those. We also plan on doing Calvary games, Glenwood, Pacelli, and Brookstone. We won't be able to get to Central. We will talk about Central next week. Smith Station, Russell County, and Harris County are schools that are still up in the air, but we'd love to be able to broadcast them and maybe even a Lynette game. But again, it's just me and Richard along with Toy Guard, Chris Gates, our producers. It's hard to be everywhere at once. We are going to try to get at least every school that I just mentioned at least one game, and a majority of the schools are going to get maybe 2, even 3 games. 12 weeks in the season. We got Thursday and Fridays we're going to be calling. Sometimes me and Richard may even have to split up depending on where we're going to be. That Heritage Bowl, maybe me and DJ Jones will be calling that, and Richard will be Russell County, Harris County, so we can knock out both those in the same week. But we need your support, okay? Businesses out there, sponsors, we need you to be able to have the correct equipment, to be able to have enough people to have a great broadcast. And in all those broadcasts, you're going to have graphics in which your business will pop up on the screen. You'll also have key reads, which I'll read about anything that's going on in your business. We'll also tag it on our Facebook page. All this is necessary to be a great broadcast, and you got to have advertisement, you got to have sponsors, and we need you, and we need community support so these athletes, these coaches can get the proper exposure they deserve. That's the whole reason we did this, Richard, is for people to be able to see and us to give them a professional broadcast, these players, because they can go back on it 10, 15 years from now and still see, hey, this is what I was doing back then. Even if they don't go play at the next level, this will be something they can look back on for the rest of their lives. So we need your support. We will drop next week our official Georgia-Alabama Sports Live football live streaming schedule next week. So make sure to tune in for that. I will be doing a coach's conversation on Tuesday. Me and Richard will be with Mindy Johnson of Harris County. And maybe, we may be going to Lynette, Alabama to be able to do a live stream with them. And if we can, we'll try to get Smith Station and Central. They're a little bit harder to get. But Harris County, Lynette, expect things from them. I'll be dropping a Coach Conversation State of the Program tour this week. Richard, without further ado, brought to you by Alliance Specialty Contractors. Here's random facts with Richard.
All right, I want to start out with this one because Thrift, you and I are basketball fans.
Yeah.
We are fans of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
We are.
A very special moment over the weekend in Greenville. They had a parade for him, and they revealed a sign that you'll see entering into the town of Greenville, which reads, "This is the home of the 2-time NBA champion Kentavious Caldwell-Pope."
Remember, he won one with the Lakers in 2020.
And then with the Nuggets just recently. He played for the Greenville Patriots. They did get to the Final Four a couple of times. He went on to play 2 seasons at the University of Georgia under head coach Mark Fox. And he got drafted by the Detroit Pistons, got traded to the Lakers in 2017. Great player. Greenville is part of the Chattahoochee Valley. I know that it would be a dream of mine to maybe call a basketball game in Greenville because they're probably honoring him somewhere. They've retired his jersey. Yeah. It's got to be there. I mean, one of the best players to come out of the Chattahoochee Valley, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They honored him. Also, we're big Columbus State fans. They officially dropped the 2023-2024 schedule. Coach Robert Moore for the Cougars, Coach Matt Hauser for the Lady Cougars. Guess who the Lady Cougars get to play November the 2nd?
What is that, Richard?
The University of Auburn.
And look at that. That's going to be pretty cool to be able to go see them. And also, coming in this year, you may be calling some Columbus State soccer games if you're available, if we're not doing Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. And they're coming in as a preseason number what team?
They are nationally ranked as a number 3 team. They went to the Final Four last year. Returning players for Coach Jay Intledge, Emma Beto, Lauren Barnes, who scored just a fantastic goal against Flagler in the NCAA championship. The Walden Soccer Complex, if you've never been there, it's a state-of-the-art facility, a great venue for soccer. Their first game is August the 31st. That's on a Thursday against Barry College. I will not be calling that game because we're going to be calling a high school football game.
Yep.
But there are some games that myself, the former general manager for the Columbus Rapids, Warren Funavestasian, and Eric Steinhauser, one of the key personnel for Concord Fire South. So this is going to be a team effort. The 3 of us are going to be calling games. I'm going to fill in whenever I can. I looked at the schedule. There's a lot of Saturday morning games like at 11 o'clock, and there's like a Wednesday game at 5.
Right.
And, they don't conflict with our football schedule.
So you plan on doing some games?
So I'm gonna plan on doing some Columbus State soccer games. It's really gonna be fun. I had a great time calling Columbus State soccer in the playoffs last year. I got to call the Elite 8 game when they played West Florida at the Walton Soccer Complex, where I got to call the final when the clock sounded, and I said Columbus State is going to the Final Four.
I mean,
that was
my
amazing.
man just wanted to be Iron Eagle so bad, or Jim Nance. He just wanted to drop those. So these are random facts with Richard. And the last fact I'm going to add to that is shout out to Steve Smith and the Chattahoochee. Great year this year. Shout out to the Chattahoochee Monsters who made it to the semifinals. The Chattahoochee lost first 2 games in a 3-game set with the Gainesville Gold Diggers. Very, very close games. Both of them, they lost 8-5 and 3-0.
Right.
Great pitching performances from the Gainesville Gold Diggers. Both the Gold Diggers and the Hoots were vying for that number 1 seed all year. They both had success against each other, and I hate it for Coach Smith. Second time making it to the championship. This is obviously his best team, and he thought he had it. But we still huge supporters of the Chattahoochee, and they're going to be a team to reckon with in the Sun Belt League for many summers to come. So thank you to the Chattahoochee, and thank you to Tom Callahan.
Also, a big shout out to Harris County Little League. They were playing Florida right now. It was in a rain delay. They were trailing 3-0. It's a double elimination tournament down at Warner Robins. But get this, Thrift. They beat Nolensville, Tennessee, who went to the Little League World Series 2 years in a row. They have not lost a regional game since 2021 when Northern Little League beat them. And I watched the game from start to finish. Fuller Carver, who pitched the no-hitter in the District 8 championship, I got to call it when I live streamed that game. He got the win. He pitched 5 innings. He gave up 2 runs. They beat Nolensville 6-2 yesterday. They're in the winner's bracket. They still have a chance on Monday, and then the championship game is on Tuesday. And I've been talking to people in Harris County. A lot of fans from Harris County has made that trip to Warner Robins, and it's really helped the economy down there in Warner Robins.
Well, excited. Hopefully they'll be able to come out as a team that makes it to Williamsport. We're cheering you on, Harris County. Thank you so much, everybody, tuning in. Thank you to Alliance Specialty Contractors being our premier sponsor. Shout out to DJ Jones and SportsVisions. We'll be live tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., 92.1 Smooth R&B. We're going to talk all things media days and everything else in the wonderful world of sports. Last week, we had Charles Oakley, NBA legend, the Orlando Ledbetter, one of the best beat writers for the Atlanta Falcons. The celebrity guest list that DJ's able to get that no one in this area can is phenomenal, and I'm so excited to be a part of that broadcast. Also, Let's Talk with Greg and Roy. Let's Talk with Greg and Friends. A show I love doing. My 2 favorite pastors, Dr. Leonard Boyd and Bishop Gregory Blue. That comes on right after on 92.1 from 6 to 7. And, of course, the Sports Speak with Richard Holdridge live on WQEE in Noonan from 2 to 3, and also anywhere you find podcasts. This will be on podcast as well. Georgia Alabama Sports Live podcast on Spotify and Apple, wherever you find your podcast. Richard's going to be uploading that later on tonight. So we'll have a podcast version, obviously, and the Facebook version. And here in the next coming weeks, we'll probably start getting into a studio maybe. And we'll also be going live on our YouTube channel, which we ask you to please follow, because that's where all the games are going to be live streamed on our YouTube channel. From Thrift Barringer, Richard Holdridge, episode 1 in the books for Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We'll be back next week. Make sure to tune in this week as we got a coach's conversation, state of the program, tour continues for the last time as we head into the football year. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.